You might think it sounds strange, but there is actually a toothbrush technique for your prostate, a specific set of daily maintenance habits that can work on the very first try to reduce inflammation and give you back your nights. If you're over 50 and you've been told that waking up 3 times a night is just part of the aging process, I'm here to tell you that's a dangerous myth. I'm Dr. Christine Rodriguez, and welcome back to the Men's Vitality Hub. As a specialist in longevity and hormonal health, I've spent years helping men reclaim their edge by looking at the warning signs most doctors overlook. Clinical research shows that the prostate isn't just a ticking time bomb of age, it's a highly reactive gland that responds to the micro-insults of your daily routine. In just a moment, I'm going to reveal the number one habit that most men think is a badge of honor, but is actually the primary master switch that keeps your prostate in a state of permanent swelling. Let's start our countdown with a habit that feels completely logical but is biologically backward. I call it the dehydration acid trap. Many of my patients come in and say, "Dr. Christine, I stopped drinking water after 6 p.m. because I'm tired of the midnight marathon to the bathroom." On the surface, it makes sense. Less fluid in, less fluid out. But your bladder doesn't work like a simple bucket. It works like a sensitive chemical sensor. When you intentionally dehydrate yourself to save your sleep, your urine doesn't just disappear. Instead, it becomes highly concentrated and significantly more acidic. Imagine the difference between pouring fresh spring water over a wound versus pouring concentrated lemon juice. That acidic urine sits in your bladder and acts as a constant irritant to the lining. Still with me? That shows you're serious about your vitality. This irritation sends a false alarm to your brain, telling you that the bladder is full and urgent, even when it's only holding a few ounces. Your bladder and your prostate are neighbors. They share the same real estate in your pelvis. When the bladder becomes angry and inflamed from acid, it swells and presses downward. This creates a vice grip on the prostate, which in turn squeezes the urethra. It's a cycle of pressure that actually makes your stream weaker and your urgency higher. But even if you're perfectly hydrated, there is a physical crushing force you're likely applying for 8 hours a day that physically chokes the oxygen out of your pelvic floor. Now we have to discuss the habit that has been called the new smoking for men over 50. Whether you're behind a desk, driving for long stretches, or relaxing in a deep recliner, the modern world is designed to keep us on our glutes. But for your prostate, sitting isn't rest. It's a physical blockade. Think about where your prostate lives. It's tucked deep in the pelvic floor, right between your pubic bone and the rectum. When you sit for hours, you are placing the majority of your body weight, often 180 to 220 pounds, directly onto the delicate nerves and blood vessels of the perineum. I call this the pelvic kill switch. Your prostate requires a constant pulsing supply of fresh, oxygenated blood to stay healthy and clear out metabolic waste. When you sit, you are effectively crimping the garden hose. This lack of circulation causes blood to pool in the pelvic veins, a condition known as venous congestion. Still with me? That shows you're serious about your vitality. This stagnant blood leads to a buildup of inflammatory markers, which signals the prostate tissue to swell in an attempt to protect itself from the lack of oxygen. I once worked with a patient named Stan, a 62-year-old accountant. During tax season, his urinary flow dwindled to a trickle. He thought he needed surgery. I told him, "Stan, your prostate isn't just growing, it's suffocating." We implemented the 30-minute reset. He set a timer to stand and walk for just 2 minutes every half hour. In 3 weeks, his pelvic heaviness vanished. But even if you move all day, there is a hidden chemical trigger in your morning routine that is secretly overstimulating your bladder and forcing your prostate to stay in a state of permanent contraction. Is your favorite comfortable chair actually acting as a physical vice, slowly squeezing the life out of your prostate every single day? We need to talk about the fuel most of us rely on to start the day. I'm a doctor, and I enjoy a morning coffee just as much as anyone, but we have to be honest about what caffeine does to a man over 50. Most men see coffee as an energy booster, but your prostate sees it as a direct chemical attack. Caffeine is a potent diuretic, but for a man with an enlarged prostate, the problem isn't just the volume of urine, it's the irritation. Caffeine is a known bladder stimulant. It tells the smooth muscles of your bladder to contract and spasm, even when there isn't much fluid there. This is why you feel that sudden, panicky urgency to find a restroom just minutes after finishing your latte. This part is crucial. Caffeine causes the muscles in the neck of your bladder and the prostate itself to tighten. This is the chemical clamping effect, so, while your bladder is screaming to be emptied, the exit door is being chemically held shut by the caffeine. You go to the bathroom, you strain, and you leave feeling like you're still half full. Still with me. That shows you're serious about your vitality. This stagnant urine becomes a breeding ground for bacteria, leading to the very inflammation that causes the prostate to grow larger over time. I remember Dave, 58. He was drinking 4 cups of strong black coffee a day and waking up 4 times a night. We didn't cut it out entirely, we just moved to the 1-cup rule. 1 cup in the morning, followed by 2 glasses of water, and no caffeine after 12 p.m. Within 2 weeks, his nighttime wake-ups dropped from 4 to 1. But caffeine isn't the only thing you're consuming that's attacking your prostate. There is a masculinity thief hiding in your diet, a specific type of food that actually converts your testosterone into the very hormone that makes the prostate swell. Is that 2nd cup of coffee worth the price of a restricted stream and a restless night of broken sleep? We've talked about what you drink, but now we have to talk about how your diet is secretly recoding your hormones. Many men believe that an enlarged prostate is caused by too much testosterone, but clinical research actually points to a different culprit: estrogen dominance. As we age, our bodies become more efficient at a process called aromatization, taking your precious testosterone and turning it into estrogen. If your daily routine includes a lot of ultra-processed box foods, sugary snacks, or unhealthy trans fats, you are essentially pouring gasoline on a hormonal fire. These foods trigger systemic inflammation, but more importantly, they lead to insulin resistance. High insulin levels are directly linked to the rapid growth of prostate tissue. I want you to think of sugar and processed flour not just as empty calories, but as a growth hormone for your prostate. Belly fat and processed diets create a vicious cycle. The more processed food you eat, the more visceral fat you store. This fat isn't dormant, it's an active organ that produces an enzyme called aromatase. Still with me? This shows you're serious about your vitality. This enzyme is the thief. It finds your testosterone and converts it into estrogen. High levels of estrogen signal the prostate to expand, leading to the very symptoms that steal your confidence. This next habit is something we've all done: holding it in. Whether you're stuck in a meeting or traffic, you are treating your bladder like a balloon, but you're causing permanent microtrauma to the very muscles that control your flow. This next habit is one we've all been guilty of: holding it in. Whether you're stuck in a long board meeting, driving that extra 50 miles to avoid a stop, or just waiting for the end of a movie, you are treating your bladder like a balloon. But unlike a balloon, your bladder is a complex muscular organ. When you overstretch it, you aren't just waiting. You are causing internal microtrauma. When your bladder is overfilled, it doesn't just expand upward into your abdomen, it expands downward, crushing the prostate against your pelvic bone. This causes immediate physical inflammation. Even worse, if you hold it too long, your bladder muscle can eventually become atonic or lazy. This overstretching damages the nerves that tell your brain when it's time to go. Still with me? This shows you're serious about your vitality. Eventually, you lose the ability to empty your bladder completely, leaving behind stagnant urine that invites infection and further swelling. Your bladder and prostate are a team, but they aren't meant to be power lifters. When your body sends the signal, you have a small window to answer. I tell my patients, there is no medal for holding your urine, there is only a larger prostate. For men over 50, I recommend the 2-hour rule. Even if you don't feel a strong urge, try to visit the restroom every 2 hours. This prevents the bladder from ever reaching that danger zone of overexpansion. I once had a patient, Chris, 59, who had a 2-hour commute. He took pride in never stopping, but by the time he reached home, he couldn't start his stream. He was causing a shutdown of his pelvic nerves. Once he started taking a 5-minute prostate break halfway through his drive, his flow improved significantly within just 2 weeks. But there are 2 common vices that men often use to relax, unaware that they are actually acting like a chemical bomb inside the pelvic cavity, suffocating the prostate of oxygen. Is waiting until the end of the movie worth the permanent microtrauma you're inflicting on your bladder and prostate? We often think of smoking as a lung or heart issue, but for a man over 50, it is a direct assault on his pelvic vitality. I want you to imagine your prostate as a garden. To stay small, healthy, and soft, it needs a constant irrigation of clean blood. Smoking, including secondhand exposure, acts like a physical kink in the hose. The toxins in tobacco, specifically nicotine, are potent vasoconstrictors. They cause the tiny, delicate capillaries that feed your prostate to clamp shut. This leads to a state called hypoxia, or oxygen starvation. When tissues are starved of oxygen, they don't just stay the same. they become fibrotic and inflamed. The prostate begins to scar from the inside out, making it harder and less flexible. Still with me? This shows you're serious about your vitality. This lack of oxygen also prevents your body from clearing out PSA, the protein we track for prostate health, which is why smokers often see their numbers creep up. Smoking also steals the very nutrients your prostate uses for defense. It depletes your levels of vitamin C and zinc, the two most important micronutrients for preventing cellular mutations in the gland. I remember a patient, Arthur, 68, who quit after 40 years. He was amazed that within just 1 month, his pelvic pressure felt lighter. His body finally had the oxygen required to begin the repair process. But there is a silent neglect that many men treat as a badge of toughness, ignoring the warning lights of their body until it's too late for simple fixes. Are you willing to trade your long-term urinary freedom for a habit that is physically suffocating your most vital organs? As men, we're often raised with a rub dirt on it mentality. We've been conditioned to think that asking for help or seeing a specialist is a sign of weakness. I see men who take better care of their classic cars or their lawn equipment than they do their own internal machinery. This is what I call check engine neglect. The problem is, while a car part can be replaced, your prostate health is something you have to live with every single day. Prostate issues are incredibly sneaky. They don't usually start with sharp pain, they start with micro changes that occur over years. By the time you're waking up 3 times a night, the check engine light has been blinking for a long time. Many men wait until they have total urinary retention, where they physically cannot go, before seeking help. Still with me? This shows you're serious about your vitality. At that point, simple lifestyle shifts might not be enough. I once had a patient, George, 61. He was terrified of a PSA test because he didn't want bad news. When we finally did it, his numbers were slightly elevated, but it wasn't cancer, it was just chronic inflammation. Because we caught it early, we were able to use natural anti-inflammatories and habit changes to bring those numbers down without ever needing a prescription. But there is a specific type of protein on your dinner plate that acts like fertilizer for prostate growth, and most men are eating it 3 or 4 times a week. Why are we so willing to maintain our machines, yet so hesitant to give our own bodies the same level of respect and care? Let's talk about what's on your dinner plate. We've all heard that red meat is manly food, but for your prostate, a diet heavy in processed and red meats like bacon, sausages, and fatty steaks acts like a high nitrogen fertilizer for unwanted growth. I'm not saying you have to become a vegetarian, but we have to understand the biological cost of that daily steak. Red meat is high in arachidonic acid, a type of fat that triggers an inflammatory cascade in the body. When you consume these fats in excess, your body produces prostaglandins, ironically named because they were first discovered in the prostate. These chemicals tell your prostate tissue to stay in a state of high alert and swelling. Still with me? That shows you're serious about your vitality. In men over 50, where digestion is slower, these fats can linger in the system, creating a low-grade fever of inflammation that keeps your bladder feeling irritated all night long. I remember Bill, 63, a self-proclaimed meat and potatoes man. He had a weak stream and constant pelvic discomfort. We made a simple trade. He kept his Saturday steak but swapped his weekday lunches for grilled salmon or lentil stews. Fish contains omega-3 fatty acids, which are the biological fire extinguishers for prostate inflammation. Within 3 weeks, Bill told me his stream felt 10 years younger. But there is a specific type of fat that you can't just cook away. It's the fat that sits right around your midsection, and it's acting like a rogue endocrine gland, actively sabotaging your testosterone every minute of the day. Are you fueling your body with fire, inflammation, or are you using your meals as a clinical tool to cool the swelling down? We've reached a critical point in our countdown. I want you to look in the mirror. If you're carrying extra weight around your midsection, what many call a spare tire, you aren't just carrying extra weight. You are carrying a rogue endocrine gland. For a man over 50. Belly fat is not just storage. It is a chemical factory that is actively working against your masculinity and your prostate health. Visceral fat, the fat deep in your belly that surrounds your organs, is incredibly biologically active. It contains high levels of an enzyme called aromatase. As a doctor, I see this every day. This enzyme literally grabs your circulating testosterone and flips its molecular structure into estrogen. For your prostate, this is a disaster. Estrogen is a growth signal for prostate cells. When your estrogen is high and your testosterone is low, your prostate gets the message to expand, swell, and grow. Still with me? This shows you're serious about your vitality. Belly fat also pumps out cytokines, inflammatory signaling molecules that travel through your bloodstream and settle right in your pelvic floor. This creates a soup of inflammation that makes your prostate feel heavy and tender. I remember a patient, Robert, 62. He lost just 10 pounds of belly fat and his urgency improved more than it did with any medication. He didn't just lose weight, he turned off the estrogen factory. But all of these habits, the sitting, the diet, the weight, are often driven by one master root cause. If you don't fix this final habit, your body will stay in a state of high alert that makes it physically impossible for your prostate to heal. Is that extra belly fat a sign of age, or is it a sign of a metabolic system that is desperately asking for a hormonal reset? We've reached the number one habit, and it's the one most men carry like a badge of honor. I'm talking about unmanaged chronic stress. You might wonder, doctor, how can a deadline at work or a family argument make my prostate grow? The answer lies in your nervous system. When you are stressed, your body enters fight or flight mode and it stays there. When your brain senses stress, it releases a flood of cortisol. This hormone tells your muscles to tense up in preparation for a threat. For many men, that tension settles right in the pelvic floor, a process called pelvic guarding. This constant contraction of the muscle surrounding the prostate acts like a physical clamp. It restricts blood flow, prevents the bladder from relaxing, and creates a feedback loop of pain and urgency. Still with me? This shows you're serious about your vitality. Stress doesn't just tense your muscles, it hijacks your chemistry. Cortisol and testosterone are made from the same raw materials. When your body is screaming for cortisol to deal with stress, it steals those resources from your testosterone production. I call this the preach and steal phenomenon. Low testosterone combined with high cortisol creates the perfect environment for prostate inflammation to spiral out of control. Howard was a 64-year-old CEO. He was healthy, fit, and ate well, but he was waking up 5 times a night. He thought his prostate was failing him. We realized he was checking his work emails right before bed, sending his cortisol through the roof. We implemented a digital sunset and 10 minutes of deep breathing. Within 2 weeks, his night trips dropped to 2. He didn't change his diet. He changed his nervous system. Now that we've identified the villains, I want to give you the ultimate weapon. It's a 15-second toothbrush technique for your prostate, a bedtime ritual that works with your body's natural nighttime repair cycle to flush out inflammation while you sleep. Are you sacrificing your physical health on the altar of hustle and stress, or are you ready to give your nervous system the permission to heal? To wrap up today's session, I want to give you a practical tool you can use tonight. I call it the pelvic decompression ritual. Just like you wouldn't go to sleep without brushing your teeth, you shouldn't go to sleep with a clamped pelvic floor. Before you lie down, stand with your feet shoulder-width apart, place your hands on your lower back, and take 5 slow, deep diaphragmatic breaths. Focus on dropping the tension in your lower abdomen. This 15-second reset signals your nervous system to move out of guarding mode, allowing for better blood flow and a more relaxed bladder during the night. The habits we discussed today aren't a life sentence. They are a roadmap. By changing the way you hydrate, move, and manage stress, you are giving your body the clinical permission it needs to heal. You don't have to be a victim of your age. You have the power to protect your masculinity and your peace of mind. If this breakdown of the 10 habits gave you a new perspective on your health, please hit that like button. It helps us reach other men who are suffering in silence. To join our mission of reclaiming strength and longevity after 60, subscribe to the Men's Vitality Hub and hit the bell icon so you never miss a deep dive into your hormonal health. Your health is a reflection of your smallest daily choices. Stability in the routine creates vitality in the body.